Welcome to the Solution Seekers podcast, where we uncover the future of bringing people together through the eyes of industry leaders. We love these conversations and hope you will too. Let's get started.
Welcome to the Solution Seekers podcast. I'm your host, Paige Buck. Today, I'm delighted to be speaking with Kennedy Events' own Senior Executive Producer and Director of Strategic Partnerships, Marianne Jackson. Marianne joined Kennedy Events in 2016 as a producer, but has always adored building relationships and sales. She took on the role of Senior Executive Producer and Director of Strategic Partnerships in 2023. At Kennedy Events, she focuses on both mentoring the event production team and growing new business while expanding our existing relationships. Her experience of expansive event production, coupled with her effervescent enthusiasm for bringing people together, has given her the reputation of knowing who you need to know within the event industry. She's always in pursuit of connection, preferably while sharing a delicious meal and event anecdotes. Today's episode is brought to you by Kennedy Events. Kennedy Events creates stress-free conferences and events, providing expert management and design for all your corporate event needs, from in-person to hybrid and virtual. You can learn more about us at kennedyevents.com. Hey, Marianne.
Hey, Paige.
Thanks for sitting through all that, laudatory. I know how you hate being talked about.
I know that's like my least favorite thing, right?
And every time I do this, I'm like sitting with a guest being like, just hang tight, coming to you.
Yeah. When I was asked to do this, it was like, can you join Paige to talk about yourself for an hour? I'm like, how many hours have I already done that?
Can I? Well, you're such a superstar in our team. I thought it would be good if we could catch up and share what you've been up to, all your favorite things. This is just a Raindrops on Roses song medley of Marianne. So why don't you start off? This is a new favorite question. I might have to start asking this of everybody. What are a few of your daily rituals that you find most important?
Yeah, so I just want to start by saying that I live in the forest in northern Michigan. I live in the woods, and I recently built my dream house, and it's a pink house in the forest. And every morning I wake up and just have this gratitude of seeing the sunrise from the east side of my house and just going through the dappling sunlight through the woods. It's like amazing. So that's how I start my day. I'm always at my desk, usually by like 8:30. I've got a Yeti filled with my green tea. I know that you're a tea drinker, Paige, too, so you can empathize with that. You're the need of the tea. That's about all the caffeine I can handle, though. And then I really like that I'm on Eastern time. So I usually have kind of like 2 hours of quiet time in the morning to just kind of focus before the meetings start. Another part of like my daily ritual is I'm pretty diligent about taking a lunch break, because like when you're working remotely, you don't really have the opportunity to like sit down with your colleagues and have a lunch break. So I'm like, get up from my desk, have my lunch break. I like to watch a sitcom rerun. I got recently into Designing Women.
Oh my God. I was going to say, what are you watching? Designing Women.
Like Designing Women. So good. And then usually like from like noon to 5 or 1 to 5, I have pretty solid meetings, like because my East Coast or my Pacific time team is online at that point. But I also try to be really diligent about setting the boundary to like get away from my desk at 5 o'clock. And then whenever I can, I go down to the beach. I'm about 5 minutes away from Lake Michigan and do a beach walk.
Your life sounds amazing.
I know. I try to make it sound amazing.
You're like, and this is when I'm not traveling for 2 weeks to 2 months at a stretch and don't get to
Exactly. Yes.
And since you mentioned Designing Women, it made my brain jump to Golden Girls.
Yeah.
And I was delighted and shocked that at a recent dinner conversation, we could name all of them, even though we haven't watched it. It was like, how is this in my brain? Can you name the Golden Girls?
Oh, Blanche, Rose, Dorothy, and Sophia.
Oh, you got it much faster than we did. We sat there for several minutes being like, okay, come on. Rue McClanahan. What was hers? Come on. But even like, how is Rue McClanahan's name still in my head? It's amazing.
I mean, I have Golden Girls magnets, and my guest room is kind of a little bit of an homage to Blanche. So I'm a stan.
Love it. Oh my God, that's killing me. I can't believe I asked the right person. And we have core values that we like live and breathe here at Kennedy Events. And I definitely think the best businesses and the best small businesses have core values that really resonate with their team. Which ones speak to you the most?
Well, because I've been at KE for 7 years, I actually had the privilege of being part of the genesis of these core values. I mean, I remember sitting down with you in a hotel lobby and with another colleague and Maggie, the founder, and coming up with these core values. And they are so entwined in like our everyday operations. I think that the one that's my favorite though is delightful. I've never
Mhm.
seen that as any other company's core value. Um, and it resonates for me because I work so closely with clients from the, inception of like their first introduction to us to, renewals year after year. And I hear from the clients all the time that they miss us, they miss our team after an event wraps, and that they can't wait to work with us again. And I think that that's right indicative of that delight.
Yeah.
Uh, and I was also thinking about like our competitors. A lot of our competitors are selling that same service, right? There's all sorts of great event agencies out there, but we're also selling like our personality and
Hmm.
we bring so much humor to the process, our panache, and it's about who you like and who you trust, and it's not just clients, it's our colleagues, it's our vendors, and that's why we've got such a big renewal base, I think. That
Yeah, I think it's humor, it's grace, it's warmth, and just to share how we came up with those core values, and we did not invent this process. And sure, many people have put a lot of thought into how core values get developed, but we got the process we used from the book Traction, and it was really what spoke to me, because I remember if you start describing this, you're like, oh my God, how will we ever come up with these? And you think of them as being client facing and they need to be these little pithy statements. And
Mhm.
they end up, if you approach it that way, they end up being aspirational and they don't ring true.
Mhm.
And they have that, they also can feel like, doesn't every business need to do that? You go to a bank and it's like
Yeah,
integrity, honesty,
yeah, yeah.
security. And you're like, I should hope so. It's a bank.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
there's literally nothing disingenuous, I think, about any of our core values. And it goes back to like sitting down and I don't know how many sticky notes we went through.
well, and that's so that sticky note process and
Yeah.
sharing with listeners that it's brainstorming qualities that you already have on your team. It's like,
Mhm.
so look at your best people. And when we were doing this 4 years ago, we were gathering our best people,
Mhm.
you and your colleague, and
Yeah.
saying, what qualities do you have that we think make you the best at what you do, and that our clients remark upon, and that are the distinctions. And then we end up, as you said, like this wall of post-it
Yeah.
notes,
Yeah.
and narrowed that down to and grouped it until we had 5. And they became not just like, oh, that says who we are, but it says who we are going to continue to be, and
Yeah.
how we'll hire, how we'll hire, how we'll fire, how we'll grow people, how we'll
Yeah.
measure their success, and how we measure like how we do day to day.
I mean,
Uh,
we like that we identify that in our sales deck. So it's like from the first introduction to us, it's like these are our core values. This is who we are.
and if you don't want delightful people, you can go away.
Exactly.
If that's not important to you, then maybe we're not the team for you.
Move on.
Yeah. Well, and okay, so that kind of dovetails perfectly with like, who are some of your favorite clients that we get to work with?
Oh my gosh, so many. And I think, it's like when I talk about like the favorite clients, it's like these people also become friends and they don't even feel like clients sometimes anymore. It's like they're colleagues too,
Mhm.
right? They're like we often hear that like our clients are that we act as an extension of our clients team, and it kind of feels like vice versa sometimes. So I mean, the first person I would want to shout out would be Shay Sobolski at Adobe. She was a client of ours back when she was at Lean Data. I think that the first time we worked with her was, what was that, like 2018, 2019?
2019, yeah. And
19.
they have the biggest event, ancillary event to Dreamforce.
That's
So
right. Yeah. Um, I mean, she's like elegance embodied, right? She's walking like a 30,000 square foot venue in Louboutins. But she moved over to Adobe. I remember she gave me a phone call August of 2020, mid-pandemic,
Yep.
and said, I'm at Adobe. I'm like, you know, piloting this brand new customer training program. It's going to be virtual events. I'm not doing it without you. Um, it made me panic. I called up Maggie Kennedy right away and I was like, oh my God, this seems like a huge opportunity. And I mean, flash forward 4 years later, how many, I think we're going on to our 14th show with her. We're
I can't-
going
can't think
to,
of that longer.
yeah, we're going to Adobe Summit, which is, a massive flagship event of theirs. We're going to be there in just a few weeks, in Vegas, where you
Well,
did
I
a
think the
show
key
for
thing
her.
about Shay is one person and she doesn't have a whole team reporting up to her.
Yeah,
And it's lonely. And I think there are a lot of folks like Shay in marketing teams and event teams around the world being like, I'm asked to pull off this huge thing. There's a lot of
yeah,
eyes on me. And also they
yeah.
have given me no support.
Absolutely. I mean, when I talk about like us being her team, like she doesn't schedule an event unless it's our availability, right? It's like, can you guys do this? Okay, then I'm going to schedule that event for that date. I also love that she's going to be speaking at Cvent Connect, which is a big industry event in San Antonio in June. She's been invited to be a speaker. She's going to talk about how she developed the program, the experience makers at the Skill Exchange, and I'm going to be attending. Get to go like support her and cheer her on, and I'm like, that feels like very full circle.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Um,
Who else is
I'm like another client. I mean, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Bloomberg. You Kennedy Events already had Bloomberg as a client when I came in. And when you guys started working with them in 2015,
I think so.
sound right? Since then, I mean, we have really become an extension of their San Francisco-based team. So Bloomberg is HQ in New York. They've got offices here in San Francisco. They've got an incredibly talented events team in Lauren and Darren and Noor. And when again, it's like the friends. It's like they tap us anytime their plates are too full, right? They're tasked with a lot of events, and then they pull us in for the larger events that are coming in. But that relationship too, I feel like they know our entire team. The
Yeah.
trust is deep. Another one I want to name is, probably one of my all-time favorite events we ever did was for NPR, How I Built This Summit. Paige, do you remember when we went to DC together and got a
I'll never
tour?
forget when we went to DC
Uh,
together and got to tour, be the little like public radio nerds that we are and
oh
tour
my
the
God.
studio and realize that a lot of these radio voices have handsome and very attractive people behind them.
Right? Like we're like kind of huddled in the corner and be like, oh my God, is that Ari Shapiro?
Yes.
Like so full on like fangirling in NPR. And we got to work with John Isabella, who's literally like the kindest, most lovely client ever. He gave us so much runway to like really envision how we take the Yerba Buena Center for the Arts campus and turn it into this, this summit that is like all of these super fans of NPR. It was like all of the like-minded people like us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that event was so vibrant and required so much of them. It's easy, I think, to look at an organization like NPR or Adobe or Bloomberg and go,
Yeah.
they wouldn't need us. They have all the tools and resources they need internally, and then realize they need they need outside eyes, they need outside expertise, they need outside production resources that they don't have the time or to go get themselves.
Yeah. I think, you and I have had conversations about like the imposter syndrome where it's like, they need me for that.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
it's like, oh wait, no, we're actually full on experts in this area. And of course they need us. I often get taken aback with like the value that we add to the clients, and they're just like the immense gratitude that they always shower upon us and our team. Like we couldn't have done this without you. And I'm like, you're right.
When I think about and I have to do the work now to flip it on its head and think about the consultants and the third parties that we rely on and think
Yeah.
they can answer, our bookkeepers can answer the most straightforward question for me. And they're like, yes, the answer is 755. And I'm like, Oh my God, thank you. I never would have taken a stab at that myself, or I
Yeah,
would not have known how to think about this problem. And you're just pointing me in the right direction. Yeah.
yeah. It's like
Um,
the valued partner, the trust, the loyalty, it like runs deep.
yeah. Um, if you could wave a magic wand and poof, we have a new client before us that's very excited to work with us. Who would it be?
Yeah. I'm like, Paige, you know the answer to this. Who would it be? You know who this would be.
No, and Ronan Farrow just wrote a profile of him in the New Yorker. It's supposed to be phenomenal, and I have it bookmarked to read it. I should have
I
sent it to you already.
I am a longtime super fan of RuPaul's Drag Race. Like that's my jam. I mean, I've watched every single episode. I watched like the recaps on YouTube of the drag queens talking about the show. I would love to do some sort of drag race RuPaul sort of event. I know that they hold drag con or even like a release party or anything like that. I'm always looking for ways that I can bring drag queens into our events where I'm like, what if we have a drag queen MC? I just think like drag is such a joyful art form and it's being incredibly attacked right now and it's misunderstood.
Mhm.
And one of the things I really love about being part of KE is that our values align with the sort of clients that I'm really excited to work with.
Yeah,
And we've on the flip side, we've had clients that have come to us that where the values don't align, and we have that integrity where we say, no, thank you.
yeah. I'm curious as somebody for whom like, well, RuPaul's Drag Race cannot escape anybody's consciousness fully, like, but as somebody who doesn't watch it and dive as deep as you, do they ever feature drag kings?
No, no, but recently, no, they haven't. But they did recently have a heterosexual man drag king or drag
Uh-huh.
queen on. And they have definitely in the past few years been really open about trans women. And I think that like when the show started, it was like pretty vehement, like there are no trans women drag queens on the show, right? And
Right.
now it is like celebrated.
Oh,
So
that's
there
fantastic.
hasn't been a sea change over that. It's on season 16 now.
Well, I just saw like a small intro to a larger like cabaret event that I was at had like a comic faux, like burlesque strip performance from a drag king that was
Yeah.
absolutely hilarious. And it was to the Macho Macho Man song.
Love.
But the drag king had like no muscles, and it was just absolutely hilarious watching him in his tank. And he's like pretending he can lift weights. It was just the most joyous, fun performance. And I was like, I need more of this in my life. So
I'm
good.
here for it.
Yeah, it was really good. So, what are some personal milestones you're really proud of?
Um, I mean, I talked a little bit about like this house that I moved into. I built this house. Like I live in the forest 6 miles away from Lake Michigan. I'm so proud that I have this dream job that allows me to live in like my homeland where I grew up. Um, and I wanted to tell you that about like my brother, he's a ninth grade teacher, and he asked me to come into his school and talk about my career path. And I put together a presentation deck, and the name of it was How I Landed My Dream Job and Built a Pink House. And I have this incredible job. I live in my dream home. I get to travel all over the world. Like you hear that people ask like, what would you tell your younger self? And I don't think my younger self would believe that I've manifested this. Like it's unbelievable to me all the time. Like the amount of gratitude I feel every day that I get to live this life that I have. I'm like, I don't want to like choke up or anything, but I'm like, I have my home, I have my dream home, and I have my dream job, and I get to travel. I'm like, I get to do what I'm really good at, and I get to like have this. It's unreal.
I think you're such a good model for like um noticing joy, like taking the opportunity to notice it and celebrate it. I was just thinking that listening to you, because when you shared that presentation, I have to go dig it out because I meant to send it to my mom. Like I was like, look, this is what somebody who works for us feels about life. This is amazing. But also, I know if my brother asked me to give a I do not have a brother, and my sibling does not teach ninth grade. But if I were asked to come speak to a group of students, I'm sure I would find some joy and fun in sharing it, but I'd be all like wonky and, like, listen up, kids. And you just had this like really beautiful way of giving the perspective of like, thinking about what you want to do and how you can manifest what makes you happy.
And let's be honest, any opportunity I have for an audience, I'm like, I will take it, even if it's like ninth graders in their fifth period on a Friday.
I feel like you should share with our audience what that you have this secret superpower and also this occasional hobby slash fun skill you like to trot out of rewriting songs. Because I'm surprised you didn't like rewrite an 80s hit for your ninth
For the
grader.
presentation.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, I started doing that for like friends' birthdays. I mean, this is like a good, like literally like 15, 20 years ago.
Mhm.
Friends' birthdays, I would rewrite usually like an 80s song. So I think I've actually written a couple for colleagues. Like I think Maggie has one.
Does she?
Yeah, Maggie has one. I haven't like, I haven't done any very recently.
You
And
do
I
have one
have
for Jess. I'm trying to give folks
I
an
did,
example.
yes, I did one for Jess, to the Jack and Diane, the John Mellencamp, yeah.
Yep. Little
So
did it out, Jess Ward.
Jess has one, Brenda, our colleague Brenda has one,
Mhm.
and Maggie has one. Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
I need to resurface that. I need to bring it back. It's been a few years since I've dug into it.
It's pretty
But
amazing.
it is a
Pretty
secret
amazing when it happens.
talent.
So you are often like out in the world for us and not at your pink house.
Mm.
You're out both learning new trends and I'm curious to ask you like what you are actively learning about, what you're curious to learn about, and then I'll ask you about your trends you're seeing and trends you're forecasting.
Yeah, I mean, I have, moving from being a producer where I was just like very much in the trenches of managing teams and being on site for, 14-hour days at events, to really focusing on like the business development side and the partnership side. I have the privilege now where I get to attend a lot of conferences. Now I just like show up to the events, and I get to learn from my industry peers. One of the things that I'm seeing a trend for is more team celebrations, more all hands meetings, bringing colleagues together, right? We do that for our own company, and I find it personally invaluable. We're an entirely remote team, right? And I think post-COVID, so many companies are, partially or fully remote teams. So I'm seeing just this hunger for like personal gatherings, and that shows in like I can just speak to 3 proposals that I have in the pipeline right now.
Mm-hmm.
One is a fundraising kickball tournament for a software company, which, it's like every time something comes in, it's always like, have you done this before? It's like, no, but we have all of the skills and all of the tools to do it. So like, have we done a massive fundraising kickball tournament? No, but can we? Most definitely. Another one is a 30th anniversary for a major gaming company, and it would be at multiple offices across the West Coast. And then another one is an all hands retreat in Mexico for a global tech company. So, I mean, what the common thread there is these are all internal events, right? They're all like fun behind it and bringing people together behind it.
Yeah. And what I notice is that both the demand and the challenge, we certainly know plenty of clients and prospects who are doing this because there's been some sort of like edict from on high. Get everybody back to the office.
Right.
The way to do that is to have cupcakes. And it's like,
Yeah.
how's that working out? Is that working out well? Like, are people actually stoked to come in for cupcakes? No. Like,
Nope, not so much.
some of it presupposes that they've laid the groundwork of having a team culture where people do want to be with one another.
Mhm.
That's not necessarily true for everybody. And some people have a lot more work to do and like meeting people where they are now, like,
Yes.
physically and emotionally. Do you want to hang out with your colleagues?
Yeah. And there's always, I mean, like this is the struggle for me. It's like the introvert factor, right? I'm like, I am
Yes.
like the most extroverted extrovert, right? And I feel like my metaphor too is like I'm also not a coffee drinker, so I never think about people need coffee in the morning.
Right.
So I have to like challenge myself to be like, oh wait, these big, massive company team gatherings, we need to carve out space for the introverts that need more recovery time and need more quiet space.
Well, or need and want an opportunity for one-on-one, or, three
Mhm.
small moments for connection and sharing, and less like, we're all doing this all at once. And it's just one big, but we just finished a project like this for Tides. A really beautiful, wonderful social justice oriented foundation here based in the Presidio in San Francisco, who grew hugely and went from being a local to a mostly remote team. And I walked through that space and found that there was so much desire for meeting your colleagues, meeting
Yeah.
other teams, meeting people that you only know like indirectly as someone who maybe does something for you once a month to like get a
Yeah.
check processed, and they wanted an opportunity to share and connect and learn from one another. And you can have everybody in one big space and still be creating opportunities for those individual connections. And
Yeah.
it's so rewarding to watch people like gobble it up.
Totally. I mean, like our own company retreat is coming up in a month or so, and we're going to meet a colleague that none of us have ever met.
Yeah.
Like beside myself, I'm so excited to meet her.
Yeah. And I'm super excited for we too have the work to do of being like, hey, so this thing is happening and we're all coming together. And one person's like, what's that gonna feel like?
Right.
Yeah, that's kind of, yes, hanging out with 12 people all at once is really not my jam.
Yeah.
And saying like, oh, no, don't worry, we thought about that. We just have to back up and explain ourselves. We have a lot of space.
Yep.
We have a lot of space in our agenda. We have a lot of physical space. We have a plan for time to reflect and
Yeah.
think.
And I mean, when you say it's like 12 people as like, and we're going to do this for another client for 1,200 people, it really doesn't matter. It's like the same parameters apply,
Yes,
right?
yes, absolutely. So you're attending a lot of events. You're getting an opportunity to learn. I know I don't know how long ago, time has no meaning anymore. You got a humbling experience attending an AI workshop. What are some of the other things that you're learning when you're attending these conferences?
Uh, I mean, honestly, like I'm one of those people that is always just like so hungry and eager to meet pretty much anyone. Like I will strike up a conversation with anybody. You mentioned the AI workshop. I think that I am one of those people that is like kind of inherently resistant to newness. I'm like, I
Hmm.
don't know if you've ever watched me work in a spreadsheet. But or like try and adapt to a new tool. And it's like it'll take me like a while to finally come around. Sitting in that AI workshop, I felt, wow, I'm behind the ball. And this is something that is coming in hot and coming in strong. And I need to not only personally adopt these tools to my workflow, but
Hmm.
what can we bring to Kennedy events and broadly, or, to our clients? Like, it was, there's a lot out there. And I think it's like, it's moving at such a fast pace. And one of the big takeaways I had was the facilitator said, somebody who has zero event experience, who's using AI, is going to operate at the same level as an expert who's got 25 years of event experience. And that was kind of like took the wind out of me, right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I'm like, until they get on site.
yeah, right, exactly. And then they're gonna say it and they're lost.
I'm like, they can make their deck, they can put their proposal together.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go
I mean,
ahead.
yeah. The other thing, I mean, it's just like I said, like I always love to just chat with anybody. And it's like, when you're making those connections, they might not be the right person that's going to give you business or give you a great hot tip, but they might introduce you to somebody that can, right? And I think that that's so much about like what my position is like you really have to get out there. Meeting face to face is invaluable. You can have a Zoom call but you're not going to have like that same bond as you would if you were like face to face, I think. So I'm finding so much value out of getting these in-person events and getting to be at conferences and actually not producing them myself, getting to be an attendee.
Yes. There's well, and there's value in being able to like sit back and just observe too. So
Oh, yeah.
rarely get to do that.
I mean, I think that last summer I attended a conference and it took me like a good 15 minutes to like fully digest how much work went into all of the print and the signage, right? Because I'm like, I know how much work that takes. I don't know how many other attendees were walking the event floor and being like, wow, look at those banners. Look at all that wayfinding. Wow, this is done beautifully. All that graphic design.
Yes.
Um,
Like I'm the person who's taking a photo of the little like toiletry zhuzhed up kit in the bathroom that somebody
right.
thought, like, oh, look, they thought to put this out. I'm going to take a picture for our team.
Exactly.
Cool.
There's so much work that went into this. I wanted to like grab somebody next to me and be like, do you appreciate all of this? Somebody
Yeah.
did this work.
So close us out by sharing some horror stories or some times you overcame cha challenges because we've had plenty.
Yeah, I mean, it was funny, like, our more junior colleagues, when I'm training them, a lot of times they'll ask me, like, how do you know all of this though? And it all just comes from like event experience, and predominantly I just call it event trauma. Like I feel like anybody that's worked in the event industry is just like has that event trauma of like things go wrong. And they're gonna go wrong. I think that the one big takeaway for me, and maybe this is like my Midwesterner like mentality, is that pretty much any obstacle can be negotiated and overcome if you're willing to be nice and like friendly and listen and offer compromises, and food helps. But I don't know how many times I have told my more junior team to say, like, you pick up the phone, you have a conversation. Somebody is not being an asshole just for the sake of it. There's
Right.
something behind it, dig a little bit deeper. And I think by like adopting that sort of mentality, like nobody's out to get me, nobody wants to ruin my event. Everybody at the event wants there to be success, right?
Yes.
Um, through that, I've like been able to like wrangle really ornery Teamsters on like a New York City loading dock in 18-wheelers. You were at that show.
Mhm.
Or, like renegotiating a hotel contract when the client failed to account for a load-in day for 1,000-person event, right? It's like, oh, wait, what do you mean the program starts at 8 in the morning with, a plenary for 1,000 people and we don't have a load-in day?
How did you think all of this stuff was going to arrive there? And
Right.
hopefully,
It's like you have a panic attack and then you kind of take a deep breath and you're like, it's solvable. It's solvable. Like, I think you have to, a lot of times in events, tell yourself, first thing, is anybody dying? Is anybody in cardiac arrest other than myself? No. Okay. Let's solve for this.
yeah, one of our producers, Jen Doyland, likes to say, there are no hearts in coolers here.
Yes.
Um,
Right.
and it took me a second to be like, oh, right, that's like the same as like, this is not brain surgery. Like, but this is consistently ranked one of the top 5 most stressful jobs. And
Right. It
I've
is.
known that since I was like 23 years old and remembered thinking, wow, I'm in a stressful job. It doesn't feel that stressful, but I find it exciting. But never able to justify in my mind how our jobs could be nearly as stressful as, say, ER nurses or doctors or EMTs or firefighters.
Right.
And yet there's something about the intensity and the urgency of the moment when everything has to come together that can make it feel that way.
Everything
So,
is, I mean, I've always said too, like my favorite part of an event is strike, because
yes,
that's you've made it through, it's like you've made
yes.
it through it.
Well, or I like the lull in the afternoon of the second day of a conference where you're like, they've gone back into their sessions after the snack break. And as
Mhm.
Malia, one of our other producers, used to say, now we're just babysitting.
Yeah.
Like, now we're just watching. Look, everybody's happy. They're where they're
Right.
supposed to be.
We're all pacified.
We're just waiting for them to all walk out the door so we can then strike and be like, woohoo! It's
Yeah.
over. But I think what you just shared about kindness and warmth and going such a long way, and why like people and delightful are in our core values.
Yeah.
It's the antidote to the stress of this work that we do.
It is. And it's something that I hear not only from our clients, but also our vendors. It's something that stands out to our vendors. We have a reputation in the industry for being like the nice ones. I think that there can be like a reputation of event planners of kind of having this like diva persona, right? And like the angry pointing and like, get this done now. And we are really respectful, and I don't care what your role is on site at that event. If you're on site at the event and you've got a job to get done, you have reverence in my book.
Yeah.
You know,
Yes, we appreciate the security guard, the bathroom attendant, the loading dock guy, absolutely. And I think sometimes they're surprised when you make eye contact and say thank you.
yeah,
And it's too bad that they're surprised because it says something about how they're treated the rest of the time.
exactly.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, words you want to share? Conversational dances for those of us watching on YouTube.
I'm like, if anybody knows anybody at RuPaul's Drag Race, please send them my way. I would love to
You
have
manifested so much, you can manifest that. I'm sure you can. Well, thanks for talking with me, Marianne. This has been delightful. It's more
It's
often.
always fun. Anytime I get to chat with you, Paige.
Thanks.
Thank you.